The numbers presented to the Council tell a story of relentless suffering of civilians in Sudan after almost 2 years of civil war between the RSF and Sudan's armed forces that has brought the once breadbasket of the region to its knees.
More than 12 million people displaced, including 3.4 million people who have fled borders. More than half of the country, 24.6 million people experiencing acute hunger. A collapse of health services, millions of traumatized children cut off from formal education, relentless patterns of sexual violence. And in several parts of the country, the already catastrophic situation of civilians has also actually worsened since our last briefing to this council less than 1 month ago.
She also referred to an alarming situation in North Darfur, including the Zamzam internal displacement camp, where escalating violence is not only affecting civilians, but the operations of humanitarian actors seeking to alleviate their suffering, amid calls on the parties to uphold their obligations under international humanitarian law.
Terrified civilians, including humanitarian workers, were unable to leave the area when the fighting was most intense. Many were killed, including at least 2 humanitarian workers. On Monday, Médecins Sans Frontières, the main provider of health and nutrition services in Zamzam, announced that it has been forced to halt its operations in the camp due to the deteriorating security situation. The United Nations World Food Programme has also just confirmed suspension of voucher-based food assistance in the camp due to insecurity and the destruction of the market.
Also, expressions of concern about the paramilitary RSF and its allies signing a charter in Kenya recently seeking to establish a parallel government in Sudan, an effort that received swift condemnation faction.
We urge the parties to end their military ambitions, focus on creating the conditions for peace, including through full cooperation with UN and African Union mediation efforts. We share the Secretary-General's deep concern at the announcement by the Rapid Support Forces and affiliated civilian actors and armed groups of a political charter that expresses an intention to establish a governing authority in areas of their control. Deepened divisions risk even further destabilization in Sudan and the region. Respect for Sudan's rights, its unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity is vital and will be necessary for a sustainable end to this war.
Reiterate.
Algeria's envoy spoke on behalf of the 3 African member states, including Somalia and Sierra Leone, in addition to Guyana.
Deeply concerned that the parties seem more convinced that the solution to the conflict can only be reached through military means. We reiterate our call for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire to lay the foundations for an inclusive, meaningful, Sudanese Sudanese-owned peace process. It reflects the aspirations of the Sudanese people.
The Secretary-General earlier warned that maintaining Sudan's unity was critical.
Escalation of the conflict in Sudan deepens the fragmentation of the country and risks further entrenching the crisis. Preserving Sudan's unity, preserving Sudan's sovereignty and its territorial integrity remain key for sustainable resolution of this conflict and the long-term stability of Sudan and the wider region.
National envoy Ramtane Lamamra is said to be engaging the warring parties and relevant stakeholders towards a cessation of hostilities. Sudan's foreign ministry urged the international community to support a post-conflict transitional roadmap that includes the resumption of a national political dialogue that could ultimately lead to free and fair general elections in the country. The roadmap includes launching a comprehensive national dialogue that would include all social forces who distance themselves from so-called aggressors. A reference there to the RSF. Shervin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.